A very warm welcome to you, Sahar. As you know, this commission is now looking into the designation of as terrorist organizations of 6 NGOs, and you are one of them. And so we are very interested in hearing account from you on not only yourself and your work, but what Addameer does when it was established, what's your priority work, and whether you're engaged in terrorist activities of any sort. Just go through all that with us. And if you don't hear comments from us, because we're not here like a court sitting in judgment, we will listen to your evidence and assess them later. So I give you the floor then. Sahar, please tell us who you are and about your organization. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I am honored to be testifying today in front of this distinguished committee and give my information and evidences about the situation of my organization, Addameer Prisoner Support and Human Rights Association. So I'm Sahar Francis, a human rights lawyer that was practicing for more than 25 years in front of the Israeli system, the civil system, and basically the military court system, and the director of Addameer since 2005, actually. Addameer is a human rights organization that was established in the late years of the first Intifada under the Israeli law, registered at the beginning as a non-profit company under the Israeli law before the establishment of the Palestinian Authority back in 1998. Back in, it's 30 years now that Addameer was established. And since the beginning, we were focusing on the issue of the Palestinian political prisoners under the Israeli occupation system. The main core work of Addameer is the legal representation for the prisoners in front of the military system. After the establishment of the Palestinian Authority, we do also represent political prisoners arrested by the Palestinian Authority. Our focus is to document and monitor conditions of detention and imprisonment, including torture, ill treatment, health conditions, education, daily life of the Palestinian prisoners via our monthly and weekly visits that our legal team implement for all the prisons and interrogation centers and detention facilities in the occupied territories and inside the state. And we, of course, we advocate and lobby on behalf of the Palestinian prisoners. Much of our work, especially with the UN system, was in trying to exhaust all the available procedures within the Human Rights Council, with the special rapporteurs, with the working group on arbitrary detention, in order to highlight all the war crimes and crimes against humanity that were committed against the Palestinian prisoners, including being involved in submitting cases to the International Criminal Court after the establishment and the fact that Palestine acceded the court in 2014. And we believe this kind of professional work and the fact that Addameer were very keen in seeking accountability on the international level were the main reason for the attack against the organization. And the attack against Addameer, as all our colleagues, the Palestinian human rights organizations, and in general the Palestinian civil society, were under attack, not just in with the designation that took place in 2021, but much before. The campaign against the Palestinian civil society actually totally connected with the whole military system that the Israeli occupation implemented and developed in the occupied territories since '67. Because if we take the military orders in place, more than 1,800 military orders that interferes and controls every aspect of our daily life as people under the occupation. Much of these military orders are talking about the civil society activism. All political parties in Palestine are still declared illegal, including Fatah, the main party of the PLO, because the PLO itself is declared illegal. All the studential movements in Palestine, in all the universities, are declared illegal because the Israeli occupation associated with them with the political parties, unionists, journalists, some media outlet would be declared illegal. The Israeli occupation is still implementing the British security regulations of 1945. And based on these security regulations that enables the military commander to use secret information in order to claim that this group or this entity is a terrorist group, is the main key tool in the hands of the military commander in order to oppress and silence and to maintain the control over the individuals, the groups, and the civil society as such. Israel already illegalized and shut down more than 48 Palestinian organizations in East Jerusalem area, and after the establishment of the Palestinian Authority, after signing the Oslo Agreement, and one of them was the Addameer back in 1998, when they closed us because, as I said, we were registered under the Israeli law. And since then, we were forced to move to Ramallah and to register under the Palestinian Authority and continued our work as a Palestinian NGO. It's not the first time that Israel declares organizations as illegal organizations. Hundreds of charitable organizations were declared illegal because Israel decided to claim that based on secret information they are affiliated to Hamas or to the Islamist Jihad or to other political parties. And as my colleague described, all these efforts against the civil society organizations at some point failed to silence totally all the Palestinian organizations. This is why they were taking different measures and different ways of harassment and trying to affect our work on the daily level. So I would be focusing more now on the case of Addameer. As I said, in '98, they declared they closed the company, the non-profit company that we were registered in Jerusalem. And since then, actually, they are taking different measures against the individuals that they are working or they are members in Addameer. Our head of the board of directors were subjected for administrative detention back in 2004, later in 2011, and since then, actually, he was banned entry to the West Bank because he's a resident of Jerusalem. Some of my colleagues were facing administrative detention or they were prosecuted based on the allegations that they are members in one of the political parties and supporting the prisoners' cases. Some, they were banned travel outside of the country. Me, myself, I was subjected for a legal case and they tried to prosecute me in the district court back in 2001, trying to claim that I was supporting one of the detainees that I represented to hide evidences from the court and to affect the legal procedures. After 6 years of harassment and the legal procedures and banning me from representing detainees in the interrogation phase, they lost the case. I was acquitted and they appealed the case and they lost the case again. But my case was used in order to ban other Palestinian lawyers from meeting the detainees in the phase of the interrogation. And it's a very important issue because the phase of the interrogation would be the most important time of the process of imprisonment for any Palestinian detainee that would be isolated and facing torture and left alone without any legal counseling. And then these confessions that they would be obtaining under such circumstances would be the base for the legal cases in front of the military court. And Addameer was aware and was highlighting these violations of the fair trial standards in our documentation, in our reports, in our advocacy work. And this is part of why they needed to fight against us, because we were claiming that the whole military system cannot be a justice system and it should be dismantled because it's a war crime by itself. It's not offering a fair trial procedures for those thousands of prisoners that they are imprisoned, but it's rather a control system that the occupation is using as a legal tool in order to maintain the control over the Palestinian people. So also the organization was raided. The first time it was in the time of the Second Intifada in 2002 when the Palestinian cities were reoccupied by the Israeli occupation forces. The office of Addameer was raided. They broke into the door, broke some machines. They took documents, but it wasn't just Addameer that was raided in the Second Intifada. Other offices of other organizations as well were facing the same circumstances. The second time was in 2012 when our office was raided. More than 6 computers were confiscated, 2 cameras, files, and we don't know, and we were not sure if they implemented back then in 2012 any surveillance technology in the office. But all these equipments that they were stealing, we never received back. When we were appealing this confiscation to the military commander, he was claiming that the equipments are under search by the security. When they will finish the investigation into the laptops they took, they will get it back to us. Since then, we never heard back from the Israeli side. The office was raided again in 2019 in the middle of the fight of Addameer against the torture that several Palestinian detainees were subjected to in 2019 after a militant attack that 2 people or more, a group of several people that they were arrested. One of them, Samer Arbid, a victim of torture, that he was tortured to death. Within 2 days of his arrest, he was hospitalized in a very critical health condition. They confirmed that he almost died under torture. Addameer was representing Samer in that time, and we were fighting against the use of torture in all the legal means that we had in the internal system and in the international system. In the middle of representing these detainees, in 2019, they raided the office again. They confiscated 7 computers, and they took material. The material that they were collecting, it's not including financial documents or any official documents with our donors, the contracts, or anything that could be considered as a proof or as an evidence that we are channeling money or that we are involved in terrorist organization. They were confiscating posters of prisoners that we represent or other organizations represent. They took our publications like the annual reports, the violation reports we publish, and so on. So it's material that is related to our work in the case of the prisoners. And again, after the raid in 2019, we communicated them to get back the computers, and we never heard back from them. And then all these years, not just the raids, the specific raids against the organization, it was accompanied with the smear campaign that was led with the NGO Monitor, mainly UK Lawyers for Israel, UN Watch, Regavim, Shurat Adin, all the right-wing Israeli organizations that they were developing after the case of the ICJ, the Wall decision in 2004, and the fact that the Palestinian civil society initiated the PDS campaign, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanction campaign. We started to feel that the campaign against the Palestinian civil society really became more institutionalized, more systematic, using the technology, like following our Facebook, Twitter, social media. Our main website were hacked several times. Were trying to affect our publications. They were starting sending messages and threatening our donors as well, like all the other colleagues, asking them why you are still funding Addameer while they are a terrorist organization. And they continued in arresting my colleagues. So currently, one of Addameer lawyers, Mr. Salah Hammouri, is still under administrative detention. And what shows that there is a systematic attack against the human rights defenders and procedures that could amount to a war crime as well, according to the ICC. Salah Hammouri was an ex-prisoner when he was young. He was convicted and sentenced for 7 years imprisonment, which he implemented fully. He was released 3 months before the date of his actual release in the exchange deal of 2011. But since 2011, Salah is facing a systematic harassment. He was facing ban order because he's a Jerusalem resident. He was banned from entering to the Ramallah city to work in the office in Addameer. He was banned from living in Jerusalem, and he was forced to go to live inside Israel in Haifa city for 6 months. He was facing administrative detention at least 3 times. His wife, he was married for a French wife, and he had 2 children that they were forced to be born in France because Israel decided to deport his wife while she was working in the French embassy with a working visa. They were traveling to Christmas to celebrate with her family when in the way back she was denied entry and deported for more than 10 years. Currently, after his detention, she wasn't allowed to visit him or the children in prison. Salah, after the deportation of his wife, he was banned to travel outside the country for several times. And the last thing, after the designation of Addameer and the other organizations in October, in November, the Interior Ministry revoked Salah's residency in Jerusalem based on the same allegations that he's a terrorist, that he's affiliated with the PFLP, based on secret information. And when he appealed the decision, the court scheduled the hearing for February 23. And they wanted Salah to leave the country and travel back to France. Salah refused to travel to France, and he continued to live in Jerusalem and working in Addameer. So they came and arrested him in March 2022. They subjected him for 3 months administrative detention. Since then, they're renewing the administrative detention. And we believe the arrest of Salah is just in order to guarantee that he's in detention, that they can control the deportation if the court in March or whenever the court is convening in 2023, if the court is confirming the revocation of his residency, they can easily deport Salah back to France. So Salah's case is actually a very powerful case in order to show how systematic they are attacking civil society, how systematic they are attacking human rights defenders, how they can use the cases of the individuals against the organizations, because one of the allegations in these reports that issued against Addameer, that Salah Hammouri is working with Addameer because he used to be an ex-prisoner. And it's not a secret. Addameer is an organization working for prisoners. So, of course, we have in our team ex-prisoners, and in our board members ex-prisoners, and in our General Assembly, because it is an organization that was founded in order to support the prisoners in the under the Israeli occupation. So, after the designation, actually, in order to put it more in a context, how this system works, the whole military system is based on these confessions or the secret information. You know, administrative detention is totally based on secret information that will never be disclosed to the detainee or the lawyer, so we are not able to defend or to know how to defend the detainees under administrative detention. No wonder that the Committee Against Torture and the Working Group on Arbitrary Detention issued tens of decisions that the administrative detention in some ways can amount to psychological torture because it's indefinite detention. And the case of the organizations is very similar because it's based on secret information that we will never receive, even though we received more than 1,500 pages about evidences, but basically it's the information that was used in the case of the healthcare committees against the employees of the healthcare committees that they were arrested in 2001. So when the military court actually is basing their cases about confessions that they were obtained by torture or based on secret information, how we can consider that this is a process that can guarantee justice and it's implementing fair trial procedures. And hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are convicted and sentenced in front of this system without any guarantee for fair trial procedures. Then they use these cases where the military court convicted a person like Salah, for example, or like Khalida Jarrar, one of the previous board members in Addameer, that she was convicted because of her political work in the Palestinian Legislative Council member, claiming that she's a PFLP member. And this is how they make the connections. This is why they are claiming that we are affiliated with political parties, because of such cases of individuals that they were convicted in the military court. And the rate of the plea bargain in the military court is more than 99.7%. Most of the Palestinian detainees choose to do a plea bargain because they don't believe in justice of this system. They know that they will not reach any justice, and they prefer to do a plea bargain in order to make it as short as they can. So at the end, all these allegations against the organizations were based on secret information. When Adala, the legal center that at the beginning represented all the 6 organizations, the 7th, including the healthcare committees, were communicating with the military commander requesting the basis, the information that made the basis for the allegations against us, they were answered that most of the information, okay, you can copy the file that we submitted in the healthcare committee's case against the individuals in the court, but you should know that most of the information is secret information we will not disclose to you. And then we appealed, and you should know that in the process of the military orders, it's the same entity, the military commander who issued the order against us is the body that we are supposed to appeal to him. Which kind of a due process is this, that you're appealing to the same entity that declared you, based on secret information, a illegal organization? But still, we appealed. All the 7 organizations appealed the military commander decision, and we never received an answer till the last day. A couple of hours before the raids that took place in the 18th of August against the 7 organizations, Adala and the other legal team received the answer that our appeal was rejected by the military commander. And they raided the office of Addameer as they raided the other organizations. We don't have any cameras inside the office, so we don't know what exactly they did. It was for our surprise that for the first time they don't steal computers or other equipments. They didn't took any financial files or any other files. We didn't found anything missing, but again, posters and publications, not especially from Addameer. Some posters that jointly we did with other Palestinian organizations for Palestinian prisoners under hunger strike were taken from the office. Why? We don't know. And then they sealed the door and they left us the military order in the door of the office that we are illegal organization and this office is closed permanently. Since then, we never heard anything from the Israeli occupation side. Of course, as Addameer, we decided after the decision of the military commander to reject our appeal, we decided that we are not going to petition the Israeli High Court because, again, as an organization working with the system for 30 years, we know exactly what's the role of the Israeli High Court when it comes for cases of Palestinian prisoners or any major cases of the Palestinian issue and Palestinian rights. And we don't trust that the Israeli High Court judges will review the secret information and come with a positive decision toward Addameer. And this is why we decided not to petition the High Court. Also, we decided not to submit any appeal or any communication according to the Israeli anti-terror civil law because we believe that according to the international humanitarian law, the Israeli minister has no jurisdiction over the Palestinian occupied territories, and this is part of the annexation plan that Israel is trying to implement their own civil system over the Palestinian occupied territories. And actually, this is one of the issues that we are highlighting as an organization working in the military system, that part of the problem in the military system is the fact that actually the military commander is incorporating all the Israeli criminal procedural system into the military order system in illegal way, in a way that it violates the international humanitarian law standards. The occupiers cannot persecute and prosecute the people under occupation according to their legal system. And so I think it's very important for us as an of course, Addameer continued to work as all our colleagues, and we rely on the support that we are receiving from the local community, from our prisoners, from the families of the prisoners, that they are continuing to approach Addameer in order to appoint Addameer to represent their family members. and the support of the international community, including the special rapporteurs and the High Commissioner, of course, in all the way, and the international organizations that they are still supporting our work. I would highlight the fact that the smear campaign against the donors caused one of the main donors of Addameer before the designation, and this is why we say that it's all connected. The smear campaign against the Swiss Development Agency that took place for several years by right-wing organizations, NGO monitors, and other entities against the SDC caused the SDC 3 weeks before the designation to inform Addameer that they are suspending the contracts with Addameer and they are not going to renew the fund for Addameer for the coming 3 years that we were strategizing with them and expecting that we should be funded by them. So when they failed actually with the smear campaign, with the lobby over especially the European countries, to suspend the fund and the support for these organizations, they came with the use of the anti-terror law, the designation, and then the use of the military order, because this is the only way for them now how really trying to silence us and affect our work, especially on the international level, with our efforts to seek accountability and to try to exhaust all the universal jurisdiction process or other channels that we can use in order to seek justice for the Palestinian victims, the Palestinian prisoners mainly in our case that we represent. I think I'll stop here and I'll be open to your questions.
Thank you so much, Sahar. You not only explain your work and the work of Addameer and the history of what happened to this organization, but I truly appreciate that you have given us a very clear account of how the justice system or the legal system works. It's true, some people may ask, well, why didn't you appeal this order? And you've provided the reason. Your knowledge of how the system works would make it really an unuseful route to take. Really, thank you for this. I personally do not have any questions, so I will hand over to my colleagues in Geneva. Thank you.
Thank you, Navi, and thank you, Ms. Francis. Could I just ask first, you mentioned that Addameer started in East Jerusalem, forced into Ramallah. Are you still working with Palestinian prisoners and detainees on the Israeli side of the Green Line?
Of course, yes. The fact that the organization moved and registered under the Palestinian Authority doesn't mean that we cannot have access to the Israeli prisons and to the Jerusalem residents as well and represent, because we hire as well Palestinian lawyers with Israeli Bar Association membership, like myself, that we can represent in the Israeli High Court and have access to the Israeli prisons as well, beside our colleagues that they are members in the Palestinian Bar Association.
And how do the staff or the organisation see the differences and similarities between detention on one side of the line and detention on the other side of the line?
There is similarities on the level of the arbitrary detention, the fact that both authorities actually are arresting without evidences, without submitting clear charges, without enabling the detainee to defend himself, and the use of torture. It's not similar, it's not the same techniques, but the fact that they are still using physical and psychological torture and the degrading treatment inside the prisons, the conditions of the prisoners are very bad conditions, alerting, especially when we are thinking about healthcare, that the healthcare system in the Israeli prisons are the minimum that is offered. And this is why at least five prisoners died out of health neglect in the last couple of years in the Israeli prison system. So the conditions of the prisoners is very bad conditions, and they face lots of violations on daily level. And this is what Addameer is monitoring, documenting, and using as a base for our advocacy and efforts in the international level.
And you mentioned that after the Palestinian Authority was established, you started taking up the cases of Palestinian prisoners. Do you have access to Palestinian prisons and to the Muhabarat centres?
Unfortunately, not as an organization, but rather as individual lawyers. So if we are appointing a lawyer to follow a case of a political prisoner under the Palestinian Authority, he can visit under his own capacity as a legal counsel for this person. And as an organization, we are not allowed yet to have these regular visits for the detention facilities. And this is part of the restrictions that we face as an organization with the Palestinian, whether the preventive security or the general security authorities.
Okay. That's a little off the subject for today, but it's something that we will, I hope we will be able to come back to at some stage in the future, to look at the situation of the detainees and prisoners through all the regions, all the areas there. Coming to today's matter, the designation by the Israeli authorities of terrorist organisations, I'd just like to formally raise with you the allegations that are made and the process on those designations to give you an opportunity of responding. The principal basis of the terrorist designation by the Israeli authorities claim to be that Addameer is providing finance to organisations considered terrorist organisations and political support to them. From your knowledge of Addameer, do you know whether there is any evidence of financing terrorist organisations or providing political support to terrorist organisations?
Definitely not. On the financial level, there is no one single evidence that the Israeli authorities can present that can prove that Addameer is financing any side, beside the implementation of our very open, clear annual work plan and budget. There's no evidence. I can assure you that they have no evidences. And this is why they actually claim that they have secret information. If they have such evidences, why they don't present it to the military court, for example, why they are not showing these evidences. And Addameer, as all the other Palestinian organizations, we are obliged, according to the Palestinian local law, to represent annual audited financial reports to all the related ministry, and Addameer is doing so, as all the other colleagues. We are still legal organization based on according to the Palestinian law. This is what the Palestinian Interior Ministry confirmed even after the designation, that there's no problem with all the procedures of Addameer and all the other designated organizations on this level. There's no suspicious that we are supporting or financing any terrorist organization. As well, on any affiliation with any political party. The fact that we are fighting for the rights of the Palestinian prisoners and in general against the occupation doesn't mean that we are affiliated. We are affiliated with the self-determination of our people as a political and illegal context, but not more than that. We are part of the civil society, part of the Palestinian non-governmental organizations network, part of the Coalition Against Torture, part of the Human Rights Council. We're in contact with the UN Torture Fund. We're working with the OMCT, with all the international platforms on the rights of prisoners and defending prisoners' rights and against torture, against arbitrary detention. This is the mission and the vision of Addameer.
You mentioned presenting audited accounts. The auditors you use, are they independent auditors or in-house auditors?
No, of course, external audit firms, and as organizations being contracted with international groups and states, including states, we are forced to choose one of the big fours on the international level. So the audit, I don't think that there is a suspicious against the process of the auditing firm, never from our donors or the organizations that were funding Addameer for 30 years now.
And has the external auditor ever raised an issue about the destination of funds or the expenditure of monies?
Never.
So all audits are completely clear audits?
Yes.
Okay. Before the Israeli military issued the terrorist designation, were you or Addameer provided with any information or allegations upon which you were asked to respond?
No, never. Even the designation itself wasn't handed directly to Addameer or any of the 7 organizations. We heard about it from the news.
From the news?
Yeah, we never received an official document saying that we are declared as terrorist organization. And allow me to explain how all this happened in the middle of the time of the coronavirus spread in January 2021. Israel, the military commander actually declared the Health Work Committee and the Agriculture Work Committee Union as illegal organizations without informing them. When me, myself, and my colleagues discovered this fact, a year and 4 months after, when they arrested the colleagues from the Health Work Committees, Khwani Rishmawi, the fundraiser of the Health Work Committee, with other 3 accountant and the human resources officer from the organization, we discovered that the organization was declared illegal in the process of the detention of when we were, because they were claiming that you are working for Khwani, for example, you're working in illegal organization. And we said, how come? Like, since when the health work committees is declared illegal? Then they presented the order, and we discovered that it was issued more than 1 year before, never disclosed to the organization. The organization was never aware that they continued to work for more than 1 year and a half as illegal organization. And it was in May 2021. And then they submitted this secret dossier to the EU in order to convince the EU that all these organizations are illegal organizations and terrorist organizations, and the EU refused. And then in October, they declared the rest of us, the other organizations, as illegal.
Just clarify for me, was Addameer representing the staff from the Agricultural Workers Committee?
Yes.
So you were their lawyers?
At the stage of the interrogation, yes. And then again, this is again explains how the military system is manipulated and used in order to maintain the control. So at one point, they said, according to the military orders, the office of Addameer, which we have 9 lawyers, and they can guarantee that there's no sharing of information that can affect the interrogation or whatever. Still, they banned the lawyers from representing all the 5 colleagues from the healthcare committees. So at the stage of the interrogation, we managed to represent part of them, but then they banned us, and we continued with one of the accountant, the main accountant, actually, the financial officer, but Khwani was represented by Avigdor Feldman, of course, and the director, Shada Audi, was represented by Leat Semel, and the other colleagues chose other private lawyers as well. And Shada and Khwani already, and Taysir, the accountant, they all reached plea bargain, and some of the charges were dropped totally, and the charge sheet was amended, and they were sentenced for imprisonment and fines, and already they were released. But in the charges against Khwani and Shada and the other colleagues, they have this introduction where they claim that all the 7 organizations are terrorist organizations.
Last question. You referred to receiving more than 1,500 pages of material after the terrorist designation. You said that those 1,500 plus pages did not contain any evidence. What did they contain?
So these information, the evidences that were submitted in the trial of Khwani, Shada, and the other colleagues from the healthcare committees, basically it's the confessions of the people, of the detainees. And I may explain that, for example, Khwani, a Spanish woman, that she's married for a Palestinian man living in Palestine for so many years, but she don't speak Arabic well. She cannot write and read Arabic. Of course, not Hebrew. Her English is poor. She was interrogated in Arabic and forced to sign 3 confessions in Arabic, a language that she don't write and read, without a presence of a translator. When her lawyer were objecting and raising this in the court, the interrogators brought translator into the interrogation in the last 2 sessions. And this is how Khwani was facing the procedures. She was interrogated without being fully aware about what's going on in this conversation. God knows how they interpreted her Arabic into the written statement, and she was telling the interrogator, I don't know how to read Arabic, and he forced her to sign a statement in Arabic. This is part of the evidences that they collected. And part of the, you should know that the military, or let's say the interrogators, the security service people claim that they have a special report how to explain that these organizations are connected to the PFLP. You know what's the base of this report? The confessions of 2 of the prisoners that they claim that these organizations are affiliated with the PFLP. The police or the interrogators are not asking these detainees, how you know that Addameer is affiliated? How you know that these organizations? There's no further investigation, and all the NGO monitor, again, they're using, the security using the expert of the Israeli Shabak is using the NGO monitor, the smear campaign material, as evidence that we are affiliated. And this is presented to the military court. And this would be presented to the High Court if we petition the High Court. This is why we say we don't trust this system, because there's no way how you can questionnaire the accuracy and how this report was drafted. We know that the court will take it as granted that this is an expert report. And this is why we claim that there's no justice in the whole process, because it's all based on information that was collected from informer or intelligence or after torture and ill treatment of detainees.
So I need one follow-up question. The 1,500 pages is these testimonies. You say that they made allegations about Addameer, but there is nothing that says how they knew this information.
Not about Addameer, sorry, maybe I should correct. The only information in this 1,500 pages document against the other organizations is just the claim from this one detainee that he knows, and God knows how he knows, that we are affiliated with PFLP, nothing else. There's no financial documents, no other documents in these evidences that is related to the other 6 organizations. Nothing. All the other information is related to the work of the health work committees. They confiscated this material, like the financial reports, the documents of the different projects, salaries of employees, the bank documents, the meetings, the records of the meetings of the organization from the health work committee. So it could be relevant to the health work committees, not for the other organizations. But they're trying to prove that this is a pattern of work. How you prove a pattern of work? By using material against one organization and claim that it's correct against the other 6 organizations.
My question then is, do you know of any basis upon which this person who gave the testimony would have inside information about the working of Addameer and the finances of Addameer?
Definitely not, because he's not part of our organization. He's not an accountant in Addameer. The only time that this person was in communication with Addameer was back in 2009 or 2008 over a joint project that we implemented with a Spanish organization together, and this project was audited, was finished, and even like there was no any claim from any side that the project was having any problem in the financial management. And since then, there's no other communications or any kind of relation between this person and the organization.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sir Francis, particularly for coming all this way and to testify to us. The question I had was, all the Palestinian NGOs are under threat by Israeli authorities, and we are particularly examining the 7 who've been designated as so-called terrorists. But Addameer seems to be particularly affected, for a long time. Mm-hmm. There is a pattern there, and I just wanted to ask you why that is. Is it because of the issues you take up? Is there some kind of that Israel feels more threatened by your work? Is there, why Addameer as the one? Because you've been raided before, it's not the first time. Yeah. You all face detention,
I think the fact that we are representing prisoners in the Israeli system is making it more easier for them to attack us, because all Palestinian prisoners are considered terrorists for the Israelis. So, and this is why, in my case, the main claim was that Palestinian lawyers cannot be objective, cannot work in an objective manner. They are affiliated with the terrorist people that they are representing, and this is why they should be banned from working and meeting and visiting prisoners. And it was always the claim, not just against the team of Addameer, other several lawyers, Palestinian lawyers who were representing Palestinian political prisoners were subjected for imprisonment, whether under administrative detention or accused in the military courts or the Israeli civil courts, that they were supporting the prisoners in the Israeli prisons. And this is, I think, the main reason, of course, because our work as well in the military system, we are trying to represent the Palestinian prisoners and taking in consideration the international standards. This is why we are fighting torture, and we are insisting, and we are trying to submit cases, all the cases that we're complaining internally in the Israeli system, it ends up without any further investigation. All the complaints that we submit to the Maftan, the special office that is supposed to investigate the torture of the security service, is closed without further investigation. And we are saying that this is intentional, and this is amounts to a war crime. So I believe that the way how we represent the prisoners in the military court, the fact that we're trying to avoid plea bargains and we're trying to exhaust the whole procedures and we're insisting in doing appeals for any extension of detention, and the way how we defend administrative detainees and bringing the administrative detention cases to the international level, saying that this is arbitrary and amounts to war crime. All this is actually the base why Addameer is so attacked all these years, because we are trying to make difference in the way how we support the Palestinian prisoners.
Yeah, related to that, I wanted to ask you, your Addameer is particularly known for your work with the women political prisoners. Yeah. And can you speak a little bit more about their particular treatment, and, you know, what is the, I mean, what are the patterns? Is it something that is it growing? I mean, what is the situation?
So yes, actually currently there's around 30 women in detention. It's not the biggest number. It used to be much before. In previous years, we reached 120-something women in detention. But Addameer's focus on the female prisoners, because they really have unique circumstances. They are separated in a prison that is not adequate for having people living. And the High Court confirmed that the Damoon prison should be closed and shut down because it's not an adequate facility for imprisonment. And instead of closing this detention facility, they made reconstructions, and they still have the women's section and one section for children in this facility, and their conditions are so bad. The physical conditions of the prison itself are so bad, because this is an old building that was built in the Mandate time, and there's huge humidity. The health conditions inside the rooms are so bad that it affects the health of the women in detention. They face lots of restrictions. There's no special health care offers or can give answers to the special needs of a woman being in detention, especially if you are in your 60s, for example, like Shada or Khwani or Khitam's case. If you are facing a psychological problem, there's 2 female prisoners that they were affected and they were mentally ill. The only solution that the prison had, solitary confinement, which made their conditions even worse under solitary confinement. And the Addameer were following these cases. We're trying to involve Physicians for Human Rights, our colleagues, the Israeli organization that focus on health care. And this is how we follow the healthcare issues of the prisoners. So also in the women, the fact that they were canceling all education possibilities. They were confiscating books and banning them from receiving any educational books or newsletters or whatever. Under the COVID, the situation of the women were so bad. They were totally, of course, all the Palestinian prisoners were totally disconnected. You should know that Palestinian prisoners in the Israeli prisons, they don't have public phones in their sections, which means when there's a closure or under the quarantine, all the 5,000 prisoners were totally disconnected from the families under all the months of the quarantine. When we were petitioning the Addameer, DCI, and all the other prisoners' organizations, the High Court, they just confirmed having public phones in the sections of the children, and then for the women, and they were enabling them phone call once in 2 weeks, which was the minimum, with lots of restrictions. So in general, the conditions of the prisoners are very bad, and especially the children and the women would be a very vulnerable group under the Israeli prison system. The transfer from the prison to the military court in the vehicles are accompanied with lots of harassment and intimidating treatment. The detention of the women in the waiting detention facility, Hasharon, they would be held till they are transferred to Damoun. They would be held in a cell which have a camera 24 hours. How you would be living in a room with like privacy where you know that there's a guard watching you 24 hours without any good conditions with the cover, the mattress, or all the other needs. There's lots of harassment, not mentioning the process of the arrest itself, accompanied with strip search in some cases that can amount for sexual harassment and sexual. We documented and reported one case in 2015 of a female detainee that was strip searched in a way that the Israeli confirmed, the Maftan confirmed that it amounts to rape. And still the file was closed without further investigation, without anyone to be criminalized in the Israeli system that committed this crime of rape.
Thanks very much. I have one final question. The support from the international community, you talked about how the UN system has been quite supportive, but what about individual countries? Because the issues you're working on, I mean, particularly, many countries are very focused on civil and political rights, and, so are you getting sufficient support? What more support would you want? Is there a...
So far, of course, we were supported, like Addameer is funded by Ireland via the Irish Aid, and it's continuing. And as all the other colleagues, the campaign that was, or the position that was declared by the EU and other countries were very supportive, but I would echo what my colleagues said, that it's not enough to protect us. And especially now, after the election in Israel and what we are expecting, honestly, we expect that there would be a serious deterioration in the circumstances on the ground. There's more violations that we would be facing, not just as on organizations, but in general, the whole Palestinian society, including Palestinians inside Israel, are so worried after the election in Israel, and we're expecting the worst. And this is why we expect that the international society should take more measures, more serious measures, in order to make Israel know that they are not going to go away with violations, with serious violations of international law, and that they would be accountable for such violations, and implement the international human rights and international humanitarian law and the standards that is used against others in our case. So we expect much more from the countries and from the UN as well.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Ms. Francis.
Thank you very much, Sahar.
Back to you, Navi.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really sorry that we've now run out of time. I do have a question, though. Can you take some time to explain to us how the administrative justice system works? I listened to your account of the administrative detention of Salah Hamouri, and I was really looking to see, well, what were the grounds for his detention? So what can you tell us about that system, and Who decides who gets into administrative detention and for how long? Can you fight that system? Do the courts have oversight of the administrative justice system? Is it being used widely? Thank you. Salah?
I can confirm that it's
Yeah.
used very widely and very systematically. And the administrative detention actually is a very wide, complicated subject, but I'll try to summarize because it has a very, very long history. But the occupation is using the administrative detention not just after the occupation of 1967. The state is using the administrative detention since 1948, actually, and mainly against Palestinians. So the policy is used in both sides of the green line, if we can describe it, the green line. And it's based on the British security regulations of 1945. But of course, inside Israel, they have an Israeli criminal law for administrative detention, where the Israeli security minister can issue a detention order based on secret information up to 6 months, but usually it's for 3 months, and it could be renewed indefinitely, where in the occupied territories of 67, the authority is given for the military commander based on the military orders. Again, based on secret information, he can arrest anyone. Administrative detention could be used against everyone. Currently, there are 7 Palestinian children held under administrative detention, 2 women, 3 Palestinian Legislative Council members, and in total, there's 800 Palestinian administrative detainees currently in detention. And the administrative detention is renewed indefinitely, and this is one of the main problems. And as a lawyer, it's so frustrating, the cases of administrative detention, because as a lawyer, you don't know what to do. You don't know the information. You don't know the evidences. You don't know how to defend these people in order to guarantee that they should be released. And there is sick administrative detainees. They're old administrative detainees. We just had a case last year in November 2021, a Palestinian retired lawyer, 80 years old, was arrested, and at the beginning they charged him in the court with affiliation with political party and other activities, and the court decided to release him on bail. So instead of releasing him, the military prosecutor issued a 6 months administrative detention against him. And they renewed the administrative detention for another 6 months. So he was threatening to go into hunger strike. And then they reduced the administrative detention. He was released after 8 months. This year, 2022, the administrative detainees boycotted the military court system for 6 months because they know that they cannot seek justice. Unfortunately, the boycott didn't revealed any positive impact. And this is why they initiated a collective hunger strike beside the individual hunger strike. Tens of Palestinian administrative detainees every year are involved in an individual hunger strike in order to fight the administrative detention policy. Some of these detainees that Raed Rayyan, for example, was supposed to be released 2 weeks ago, after he was promised after the hunger strike that they will limit his detention for 6 months. They didn't respect their promise, and his detention was renewed. And now there's 30 administrative detainees that they were saying, we will go into hunger strike to support Raed Rayyan to be released. The administrative detention is a very, very problematic policy. It's used in a very systematic way. It's really amounting to arbitrary detention that is supposed to be considered as a war crime.
Thank you very much, Sahar. Thank you for taking time to explain these issues in detail and to talk about what has happened to Addameer. At this point, I want to make clear and place on record that this commission has invited submissions from all parties and from states. We are states who are sitting with documentary evidence or information about these seven NGOs who have been designated terrorist organizations. So we stand ready to receive the information from states. We stand ready to hear submissions or to hear alternate voices. In the absence of alternate voices challenging what we have heard today, we do not have any source that is a genuine challenge to the truth of what we've heard from the NGOs. So I want to thank you for today's hearing. This commission will resume the hearings tomorrow, Tuesday, the 8th November. And those hearings will be chaired by Commissioner Sidoti and Commissioner Kotari. Thank you. I close these proceedings.
Thank you.